Alrighty, so here's the DET3 just kind of laying about. If you look here, we've literally only got a handful of wires. So on this connector, there's 20 pins, and look at how many are actually like left over that aren't being used at the moment. We'll obviously use them, but I mean, you can see how many are actually hooked up here. It's not very many. I use these little, I'm not a huge fan of these, but I like to use them when I'm like doing a semi-permanent wiring. So like, just in case if we need to go back to stock. So now everything here is straightforward. There's only one thing that I really want to talk about here. We had to do a little trial and error, but on the crank sensor, there's 2 wires. It's a VR sensor. It's a 2-wire sensor. So you basically cut the 2 wires and you wire the ECU side. So you cut the 2 wires off the crankshaft to the ECU. So you've turned 2 wires into 4. So there's now 2 going to the crank and 2 going to the ECU, right? So the ones to the ECU go into the DET3. The other 2 from the crank sensor side, only 1 wire goes into the DET3 and the other one actually goes to ground now. So that's a little bit different, what I'm not used to. So it took a little bit of trial and error last night for me to figure it out. And the reason is that the manual is kind of confusing because it's like they translated it into English. But ours is what's called like a VR differential. So, I mean, it was real simple to do. It was just like wired it all up and then cranked it, and then we had no RPM, right? No settings would change any type of RPM. And then just as a Hail Mary, I switched up the wiring really quickly, switched to the differential, and bam, instant RPM. It started right up. RPM was like on the money this morning. So, but yeah, that's really about it. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to kind of zip tie these main wires here. We'll wrap up some more of the factory harness a little bit, just to kind of clean it all up. And then we're probably going to mount the DET3 here with some Velcro or double-sided tape or something like that, but that's probably where it's going to go, kind of like that right there. And then we're going to leave these for now. We're just going to kind of bundle them up and leave them for now because there's going to be eventually more things that we may end up hooking up. But that's it right there. So far we're making really good progress. Got to do a little bit more adjustments here, but RPMs are matching, everything's working as it should. So we're gonna do a little bit of test here. We're gonna pull like 15% maybe. Let's subtract 50% fuel and it should die. Perfect. So now that we know that it works, let's see here. Put that back at 0. Let's go ahead and start this puppy back up. Cool, so it's all working as it should. We're gonna go ahead and do the same deal here. We're gonna let the idle kind of come down really quick. And so the reason why, if you're looking that it's only going up and down vertically, it's because the MAF sensor is not hooked up on the DET3. So we're gonna put -15 here, and you can hear the RPMs is like struggling. So we're gonna put it back to 0 and it should come back up. Bam. Okay, so we've got, it's got mostly set up. We're gonna have to do some more fiddling here as far as like the software side goes, and then get that all calibrated. So I found out on this motor that there's actually not a ton of vacuum lines. Usually most cars have just a ton of vacuum lines. This actually is for the cruise control. It has a check valve here. I just ran a vacuum line to it and I just kind of zip tied it. So I zip tied the ECU there for now. This is not exactly where I wanted. But here's the reason why. One, if I actually Velcroed it over there, it'd look too nice. But truthfully is because that I found that there is a MAF sensor adapter here for a vacuum line. So I've already got that adapter on order. And then we're gonna use that. That way I can put this all back to stock without having to deal with it. A second thing is that the customer's gonna want a boost gauge. So buying that tap makes the most sense because it has 2 ports already. So I can just tap it there. Once I get that all done, then I'll go back and I'll clean all this up. But that's good for now. That's not gonna hinder us from moving forward. So at this point in time, what we're gonna do here is just, I'm gonna route the USB cable a little bit better to the passenger side here, stick my laptop in it, and then we'll go for a long drive, and then let's get started on this MAF to MAP conversion. That way we can get an analog input back. We got the Ranger warmed up, so now we're gonna start doing our log. So basically we got to do a bunch of just random driving around and all sorts of different loads. So we're gonna start off just kind of driving it normal. I got to get gas for the Supra that we just got running, and then I'm gonna pick up lunch as well. So we're gonna take the long way about it though, and then hopefully that should be, they say roughly about 20 to 30 minutes of driving. So hopefully that's going to be enough, and then we should be able to convert it from MAF to MAP. All right, so we've done so about 30 minutes or so of driving in the Ranger. Got it off. I'm doing our log here, stopping at our local taco spot here. So we're gonna do this MAF to MAP conversion and see how it goes. Alrighty, so we've got this going on here. So it's literally as simple as clicking MAF to MAP, and then it should generate a fuel table for us, I think. And it definitely did. It generated a fuel table. Obviously this is all nothing because there's nothing there. So we're gonna turn this to 0. That way we don't have anything weird here. And then what I'll do is I'll eventually go back and I'll interpolate these tables. That way, again, it's not just goofy looking, because some of these values are decently unrealistic in my opinion. This is probably just from me decelerating potentially. So then at this point we have to go to do our output should be our setup tables here. And so we have our load here. This should be, this become 0, and then let's see here, and then we should hit apply here and hit OK. And then from there we're going to go to our analog output. Sorry, our analog output here, and then change our offset to 2.49, and then that actually should be it right there. So now we're gonna hit F10 to save it, and then it should be running fine, hopefully. All right, so that's the setup right there. It seems to be idling really good actually. So we're gonna leave this alone for a little bit, and what we'll do is I will just drive it back to the shop as is. No check engine light so far. So holy crap, this thing runs like how it did earlier. It's really weird. We're gonna have to like pull the MAF out or something just to check to see if that's right, but it seems to be running fine. So I'm actually kind of flabbergasted that it runs so damn well. So let me try to get some more time. We're gonna pull the MAF out of this sucker and then just kind of see if it's, maybe I did something wrong. We'll check it out here in a sec though. Alrighty, so we've got the fuel map dialed in. So basically the MAF right now is not doing anything, and it seems to be running fine. It's not perfect by any means, but it's actually running pretty damn good. I'm gonna pull over here and disconnect this MAF really quick altogether, and it's gonna throw a code for obviously the intake air temp, but it shouldn't throw a code for the MAF at all. So I'll pull over real quick here, unplug this MAF and see what happens. MAF unplugged, didn't even change the idle. We'll leave it dead. So we'll eventually get codes for the intake air temp sensor because that's built into it, but let's try it. So no codes yet. Runs fine though. So let's see. If you look here, analog 1 says 0, so the MAF's not connected, but the MAF output is still there. So let's see. All right, check engine light is on. I'm talking really loud because we're right next to the Supra, and look, we've actually got the intake air temp sensor circuit, but we have a pending MAF that makes sense because the ECU I'm pretty sure the ECU knows that the sensors are together, and it's difficult to have one fail without the other. But the MAF currently is not pending. Potentially, if it is separate, all we have to do is just change the output on the software really quickly to just come up just a hair, and then that should be it though. So what I'm going to do is plug the MAF back in, but I'll disconnect it at the DET3 and then see what happens.